I talk about this phenomenon that I try to conceptually explain as spiritual awakening, which is crack in the structure of the personality. So the separation or separateness or the ego, as we call it, is cracked or let's say it loses its solidness, its realness. As a result, the whole perception of life, living, people, things, it changes. Now it is seen that everything is fleeting, everything is transient. And it is also known that whatever is fleeting and transient is not going to give abiding happiness. So, what happens as a result is that the mind turns inwards because there is nothing in the external world that now brings peace. This phenomenon is also known as the end of seeking. All of a sudden, you find that you're no more seeking answers to the questions that you had earlier. Why is life a certain way? Why is it good? Why is it bad? Why is there evil in the world? Why do people behave this way, that way? Why are relationships complicated? Why there is violence? Why there are wars? All those questions begin to dissolve. And there is this understanding that this limited mind, which is rooted in separation, which is completely immersed in fragmentation, cannot understand the true cause of why things are the way they are. As a result, there is peace, not because the questions are answered, but because the questions now dissolve. It is now known that no matter what answers come up, every answer will produce multiple questions. So, with this solidness or realness of the separation gone, the mind that remains turns on itself. And Ramana Maharishi says that when the mind turns on itself, that is the eternal self. That is the true peace or bliss. So, you see, we now understand that any strive to become whole, to attain a certain state of mind, which we can call bliss, which we can call happiness, or peace that is dependent on external circumstances, is illusory, is fleeting, is transient. Now, having that deep knowing, there is no striving, there is no trying, or there is no wanting to get hold of external things to build the separate self. So one becomes free of this whole process of becoming something better by either gaining something or losing something. That whole effort, that whole strive is gone. So what remains as a result is peace. But when we are fighting for the validation of the society, fighting for others to recognize us, to understand us, to validate our feelings, to see things through our lens, then we suffer. We feel that forcing our point of view on others can make them understand our perception of how we see things. And we, when the separation is strong, are very much divided into what should be and what should not be, into good and bad, into virtue and vice, into moral and immoral. And we constantly swing between these two polaric opposites of the same link. And this swinging causes the trouble, it causes pain. We build strong beliefs, thinking that if we stick to what is conventional, what the society approves, what people validate, we are going to be happier. If we live with the exact blueprint that is handed out to us, we will be much better off. But as we have seen, that never works because we immediately get to see the opposite. The moment we start following a blueprint, start following society's steps blindly, we see the pain that comes out on the other end. And when we are stuck, completely trapped, it is then that the society tells us that, oh, this was also a part of it. But then it's too late because we are totally stuck. Financially, emotionally, and in many other ways. Therefore, spiritual awakening is a crack in this whole facade. It's a crack into the structure of the fear, and it is a glimpse into the wholeness, the bliss of the self. So, when that happens, this mind, although still identified with separation, stops externalizing, stops pointing finger at other people. My poor life is because of others, because of this bad situation, because of that situation, because of this person, that person. It inverts on itself. Who is feeling? Who is thinking? Who is sensing? Who is coming up with all these ideas? And what does that entity want to achieve? So the realized ones, where this understanding has happened, do not fall into the trap of flattery or insult. They do not get offended with insults, and they do not fall for flattery. They feel nice when somebody expresses appreciation, because that is at the very basic level and that is very sincere. Whereas flattery is insincere. And of course, insult is complete unconsciousness, because the person who insults you is speaking from their own filters, from their own image, from their own programming. So it is not really the person who's speaking, it is the programming that is being executed. So for the realized one, there is no core ego to actually internalize it. That whole system of internalizing and absorbing unconscious energies, it dissolves completely. One may feel the sting. One may feel the sting of the insult, and that's okay. But internalization never happens. And that is the grace. When the separation is strong, it is very common for the person to internalize the insult and make it a part of that whole structure. I was insulted by the other person. Therefore, I will teach them. I will show them. And then this whole suffering continues day after day in proving oneself, in establishing one's superiority over the other, in proving to the society that my worth is in what I do. But this whole shift happens after awakening when there is a crack in the facade and the mind inverts on itself. There is no need to prove anything to anybody. And one can feel completely worthful, completely whole in one's own being, not in being this or that, not with my profession, not with what I have achieved, not with how much money I have built, I have accumulated, not with how many properties I own or how many cars I own or how much social status I carry with me. None of those things define the worth of a realized one. A realized one can be wealthy or poor, but they are not affected by any of their surroundings. In the same way as an unconscious person does, where the understanding has not happened. So mind inverts on itself. It always comes back to this me who is feeling insulted, who has registered flattery, and who is building an image based on that flattery. That image is pain, is suffering. There is capacity to accept criticism. There is a capacity to accept appreciation. But there remains no capacity after awakening to register an insult or a flattery. They both sting for the person because the person still is there. It's cracked, but it is there. But it does not have now the capacity to hold things in horizontal time as thinking, obsessing over, trying to avoid, or trying to accumulate, or trying to purify itself. This knowing of pure beingness is purification itself. When the mind is sufficiently quiet, one taps into their most natural state. It is the simplest thing of all. That is what Bhagwan Ramana Maharishi says. But we put so much effort in trying to build ourselves, build the image. And those of you who think that I am talking about leaving your jobs and moving to the caves and meditating there for hours, no, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about people who have created this image for themselves and constantly seek validation externally for the upkeep of that image. That can be a high-ranking official in the corporate structure, or that can be even someone on the roads, someone on the streets. It has got nothing to do with anybody's financial status. It has got to do with the understanding, which is grace. So you see this flattery which comes about when one perceives that they are doing good actions, which reminds me of something that was said by Sadguru Sri Siddharameshwar Maharaj, who was the guru of Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj. And he said that there are two types of shackles. The thief is in iron shackles, whereas the king or a rich man is in golden shackles. He says it is much easier for thief to realize the truth than the rich person, because the thief knows his pain because he has been shamed, constantly shamed that he has done bad things. So he knows that if somebody comes and opens the shackles, gives the direction, there is a possibility for the thief. But the trouble is with the one with wealth and with the golden shackles. There, the understanding. Now, it's not to say that all wealthy people are like that. Again, as I mentioned earlier, it does not depend on the financial status. But to explain this whole concept of flattery and how it is more painful than an insult. The one who's unconscious and is trapped in the golden shackles is very difficult for that person. Their suffering is much more than the thief, because they do not even acknowledge that they are bound, that they're trapped. And anybody who tries to come and show them the way, they attack. They don't want to get out of the golden cage. They don't want to get out of the golden shackles. Because their identification, their sense of self, is now extended into that bondage. And they say that there is nothing for me beyond this. Whereas the thief has a chance, because thief has nothing much to lose. A rich man has much more to lose. So when somebody does good deeds, there can form an image, a prideful image, which can be much more painful. And Siddharameshwar Maharaj says that you have to let go of your good deeds also, along with the bad ones, if you truly want to be free. Because good deeds bind you harder than the bad deeds. Bad deeds are still tolerable and can be worked out, but the pride, the arrogance that comes out of somebody performing good deeds is very difficult to let go of, because they're constantly reminded how great they are, how they are above others. They're constant enamored with praises and flattery, and it builds up this very strong image, which is very, very painful. The bigger that image is, the more fragile it is. So anyone with a small prick, insult, can crack that image. But the image never goes. It fights, it solidifies again. So what awakening does is it cracks that whole structure. The structure is still present, because structure is required for daily living. But now it is not all that effective. It is not all that solid. Its realness is gone. So naturally, one feels at peace.